The morning sky over Seoul turned black as death. Massive alien warships, each one the size of a city district, descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling mountains. Their hulls gleamed with an otherworldly metal that seemed to drink in sunlight, casting shadows so deep that streetlights flickered on automatically across the Korean peninsula. Admiral Park Jin-woo gripped the railing of his command bridge aboard Orbital Defense Station Alpha, positioned high above Earth's atmosphere. Through the reinforced viewing ports, he watched in horror as humanity's most sophisticated defense satellites simply stopped working. No explosions, no dramatic destruction. They just went silent, one by one, like candles being snuffed out by an invisible hand. "Admiral, our quantum pulse cannons aren't responding," called out Weapons Officer Lee Minji, her fingers dancing frantically across holographic controls. "The entire orbital defense grid is offline." The alien ships weren't even trying to hide their power. They had disabled Earth's most advanced military technology without firing a single shot, as easily as a child might turn off a light switch. The message was clear. Resistance was pointless. Lieutenant Kim So-min burst through the bridge doors, her uniform wrinkled from a sleepless night, monitoring deep space communications. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously. Every radio, every television, every smartphone on Earth." The alien voice that filled the bridge was unlike anything human ears had ever heard. It carried the weight of absolute authority, each word pronounced with mechanical precision, yet somehow dripping with contempt. The translation system struggled to keep up with the alien language, but the meaning was crystal clear. Primitive. Humans of Earth. I am War Chief Balthok of the Hegemony Coalition. Your species has been evaluated and found suitable for incorporation into our empire. You will surrender unconditionally within 72 hours. You will provide tribute of rare minerals, agricultural products, and 10% of your population for labor duties. Resistance is futile and will result in the complete sterilization of your world. Admiral Park felt his blood turn to ice. Through his career, he had prepared for many scenarios: nuclear war, asteroid strikes, even first contact with alien life. But this clinical, matter-of-fact announcement of humanity's enslavement was beyond his worst nightmares. The transmission continued with bureaucratic efficiency. "Your primitive weapons cannot harm our vessels. Your governments will present themselves for processing in the designated zones. Any attempt at military action will be met with immediate planetary bombardment. This is not a negotiation. This is an inevitability." 600 kilometers below, in the deep underground bunker complex beneath Seoul's Blue House, President Lee Dong-hyun was already in motion. The emergency session of the United Earth Council had been called within minutes of the alien arrival, and representatives from every major nation were connected via quantum-encrypted channels. Defense Minister Cho Min-jae's weathered face was grim as he manipulated the three-dimensional tactical display floating above the conference table. Red dots marked the positions of alien vessels over major cities, strategic military installations, and key industrial centers. The formation was perfect, calculated to maximize psychological impact while maintaining optimal strike positions. "Status." "Report," President Lee commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting in the world above. 3,200 confirmed vessels, General Han Jisoo reported, her military bearing unchanged even in the face of humanity's darkest hour. Each ship measures approximately 2 kilometers in length. They're using some form of gravity manipulation for propulsion. Our physicists are calling it impossible, but there they are. The numbers were staggering. Earth's entire combined military force consisted of perhaps 50,000 aircraft and naval vessels. The aliens had brought a fleet that could glass the planet's surface multiple times over. "Intelligence assessment?" President Lee asked. Commander Park Sang-ho pulled up historical files on his tablet. "We've been monitoring deep space communications for decades. Cross-referencing with our data, the Hegemony Coalition has used this exact strategy 47 times in the past century. Same ultimatum, same 72-hour deadline, same outcome every time. Which is complete subjugation. They take what they want and leave the conquered species as slave labor. No exceptions, No negotiations, no mercy. Dr. Yoon Haejin, head of the Advanced Weapons Division, had been silent throughout the briefing. Now she leaned forward, her eyes bright with a mixture of fear and determination. Mr. President, there is one option. Protocol 7 has been ready for activation since 2157. The room fell silent. Protocol 7 was humanity's most classified contingency plan, known only to a handful of individuals across the globe. It had been developed in absolute secrecy, funded through black budgets and hidden research facilities. President Lee met each council member's eyes in turn. The weight of humanity's future rested on the next words spoken in this room. The aliens expected surrender, just as they had received from 47 other worlds. Then we give them our answer, President Lee said quietly. Activate Protocol 7. Show these invaders what humans do when someone tries to put chains on us. The war for Earth was about to begin. 72 hours had passed like a nightmare that refused to end. The alien fleet hung motionless in Earth's sky, their massive ships casting permanent shadows across the planet's surface. In those 3 days, they had demonstrated their power with surgical precision, vaporizing empty military bases, turning abandoned airports into glass craters, and jamming every communications satellite humanity possessed. President Lee Dong-yun stood in what remained of the Blue House's press room. The ceiling had collapsed during the aliens' demonstration attack, leaving twisted metal beams jutting down like broken ribs. Smoke still rose from the burning districts of Seoul visible through the shattered windows, but something remarkable caught the eye of every reporter present. The Korean flag still flew proudly from its pole, untouched and defiant against the apocalyptic backdrop. The president's aide, Kim Young-ho, adjusted the emergency broadcast equipment one final time. "Sir, we're broadcasting on every remaining frequency. The whole world is watching." President Lee straightened his tie and looked directly into the camera. His voice carried no trace of fear, only the quiet strength that had defined Korean resilience for thousands of years. "To the Hegemony Coalition and their war chief Balthok, I speak for every human being on this planet. The Republic of Korea and the United Earth Council have considered your ultimatum carefully." He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle across the burning city behind him. "We reject it completely. We will not surrender our freedom. We will not become your slaves. We will not kneel." Aboard the flagship Domination's Edge, War Chief Balthok's 4 eyes widened in genuine surprise. His insect-like mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound his species made when encountering something unprecedented. Around him, his bridge crew of various alien species exchanged confused glances. In 3 centuries of conquest, no species had ever refused the hegemony's ultimatum. "Impossible," Balthok hissed, his translator rendering the alien words into mechanical English. "These primitives dare to refuse us? Their weapons are toys compared to our power." His tactical officer, a reptilian creature named Vexistar, pulled up holographic displays showing Earth's military capabilities. "War Chief, their technology appears to be at least 2 centuries behind our standards. They still use chemical propulsion for their spacecraft and primitive kinetic weapons." Balthok's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his kind. "Then they have chosen extinction. Begin bombardment of their major population centers. These humans will learn what happens to those who defy the Hegemony Coalition. But 300 kilometers beneath Seoul, in bunkers carved from solid granite during the early 21st century, a different kind of preparation was already in motion. Colonel Song Woo-bin stood before a wall of monitors, showing underground networks that stretched across the Korean peninsula like the roots of an enormous tree. "Phoenix base to all stations," he spoke into his headset, his voice carrying the calm authority of a man who had spent 20 years preparing for this exact moment. "Protocol 7 is now active. Initiate Operation Mountain Storm." Across Korea, what appeared to be ordinary hills and mountainsides began to reveal their true nature. Hidden doors slid open in cliff faces, camouflaged by decades of careful cultivation. Entire neighborhoods that had seemed abandoned during the alien demonstration attacks suddenly came alive with activity as civilians emerged from underground shelters, moving with the practiced efficiency of people who had drilled for this scenario countless times. In the Taebaek Mountains, Captain Oh Ji-young crouched behind what looked like a natural rock formation, but was actually a sophisticated observation post. Her Alpine unit had been living in these mountains for the past 72 hours, invisible to the alien scanners that swept the area repeatedly. "Phoenix Command, this is Mountain Eagle," she whispered into her communication device. "All ghost. Units are in position. The aliens have no idea we're here." Her soldiers were spread across the mountain range, each equipped with gear that would have seemed impossible just days earlier. Weapons that looked like hunting rifles, but fired concentrated plasma bursts. Backpacks that contained enough supplies for months of guerrilla warfare. Most importantly, communication equipment that used quantum entanglement, a technology the aliens couldn't detect or jam. Meanwhile, in the bustling port city of Busan, engineer Kim Tai-yang watched through periscope. Cameras as alien patrol craft swept low over the harbor. To their senses, the massive cargo containers stacked throughout the port looked exactly like what they appeared to be: simple metal boxes filled with trade goods. "Camouflage systems have worked perfectly," he reported to his team. "The aliens have scanned this area 6 times and detected nothing unusual." At his command, a miracle of human engineering began to unfold. What the aliens had dismissed as primitive cargo containers split open along hidden seams, revealing gleaming railgun turrets that rose on hydraulic lifts. The cell phone towers scattered throughout the city transformed as their outer shells retracted, exposing advanced sensor arrays and communication hubs. Even the industrial buildings along the waterfront revealed their true nature as massive weapon emplacements emerged from camouflaged positions. The aliens had made a critical error in their assessment of human technology. They had looked at Earth's military hardware and seen primitive kinetic weapons, chemical rockets, and basic electronics. What they had failed to understand was that humans were masters of deception and adaptation. Every piece of technology they had dismissed as obsolete was actually a carefully crafted disguise. For 50 years, ever since the first radio signals from deep space had hinted at the existence of hostile alien civilizations, humanity's greatest minds had been working in secret. They had developed weapons that looked like everyday objects, built underground cities that were invisible from orbit, and created communication networks that operated on principles the aliens had never encountered. War Chief Balthok was about to learn that humans didn't just fight when cornered. They prepared. They adapted, and they never ever gave up without making their enemies pay a price that would haunt them forever. The real war was about to begin. Dawn broke over Incheon with the roar of alien engines. 50 massive dropships descended through the morning mist like mechanical vultures, their dark hulls gleaming with the same otherworldly metal as the motherships above. Inside each vessel, 200 alien warriors prepared for what they believed would be a simple mop-up operation against defenseless humans. War Chief Balthok watched the invasion begin from his flagship's command center. "The humans have had their 72 hours to consider surrender," he announced to his officers. "Now they learn the price of defiance." The first dropship touched down in what appeared to be an abandoned industrial district near Incheon's port. Alien soldiers poured out in perfect formation, insectoid warriors with 4 arms each carrying plasma rifles, reptilian shock troops with natural armor plating, and floating mechanical drones that scanned for human resistance. They found none. The area seemed completely deserted. "Sector 7 clear," reported the alien squad leader, his translator converting clicks and hisses into standard galactic language. "No primitive resistance detected." That's when Captain Park Seo-hyun smiled. From her concealed position 2 kilometers away, she pressed a single button on her command console and spoke 2 words that would echo across the galaxy. "Fire everything." What the aliens had mistaken for abandoned construction equipment suddenly came alive. Massive concrete barriers split, open to reveal gleaming plasma cannons, weapons reverse-engineered from alien technology, recovered from scout ships that had crashed during reconnaissance missions years earlier. Giant cranes rotated on hidden axes, their arms extending to reveal multiple missile launchers. Even the innocent-looking portable toilets scattered across the construction site transformed into automated defense turrets. The sky above Incheon erupted in brilliant flashes of energy, purple plasma bolts, each one capable of melting through starship armor, streaked upward toward the descending alien vessels. The first dropship took a direct hit to its engines and began spinning wildly, trailing smoke and alien coolant as it crashed into the Yellow Sea with a massive splash. "Direct hit on Target 1, shouted Lieutenant Bei Jinsu from his weapon station. "Their shields can't handle their own technology turned against them." Captain Park watched through her scope as alien soldiers scrambled for cover, their perfect formations dissolving into chaos. "All units advance to secondary positions. Show these invaders what human ingenuity looks like." Her mechanized division rolled forward, not in conventional tanks, but in vehicles that looked like ordinary delivery trucks and city buses, until their outer shells retracted to reveal advanced combat systems. The aliens' own energy weapons had been mounted on human vehicles, creating hybrid war machines that combined alien firepower with human tactical flexibility. 20 kilometers offshore, the Yellow Sea began to churn with activity. Commander Lim, Chanwu's submarine fleet, had been waiting patiently beneath the waves, their hulls coated with a metamaterial that made them invisible to alien sensors. But now the time for hiding was over. "Surface the fleet," Commander Lim ordered from the bridge of his flagship submarine. "Let's introduce our guests to Korean naval tradition." 6 submarines breached the surface simultaneously, water cascading from their hulls as hidden weapon ports opened along their sides. These weren't the crude ballistic missile subs the aliens expected. They were floating weapons platforms, bristling with captured alien energy cannons, quantum torpedo launchers, and shield generators that flickered with the same energy fields that protected hegemony warships. "Target the command vessel," Lim commanded, watching as his crew locked onto the largest alien ship hovering over Incheon. Time to teach these space invaders what the Korean Navy can do. The submarine's main gun, a massive plasma cannon salvaged from a crashed alien cruiser, charged with a sound like thunder. When it fired, the beam of concentrated energy punched straight through the alien command ship's shields and hull, leaving a glowing hole the size of a city bus. The enemy vessel listed to one side, emergency systems screaming as alien crew members scrambled to contain the damage. High in the Taebaek Mountains, Sergeant Major Nam Ki-ho watched alien supply convoys through his binoculars. The enemy had established what they thought was a secure supply line between their landing zones and forward positions, using repulsor lift vehicles that floated 3 meters above the mountain roads. "They're following the same playbook they used on 47 other worlds," he radioed to his guerrilla teams spread throughout the peaks. "Predictable supply routes, no reconnaissance, no adaptation to local terrain. These aliens fight like they're playing a video game with cheat codes." His team struck with devastating precision. Hidden charges detonated beneath the floating alien transports, while soldiers armed with captured energy weapons emerged from camouflaged positions to unleash concentrated fire on the convoy escorts. Within minutes, what had been a routine supply run became a burning wreck scattered across the mountainside. "Phoenix Base, this is Mountain Ghost," Nam reported with satisfaction. "Supply convoy neutralized. These aliens might have superior technology, but they have no idea how to fight in our mountains." Above the chaos, Major Seojihi led Dragon Squadron through the smoke-filled sky in modified F-50 fighters that bore little resemblance to their original Earth designs. Alien shield generators hummed beneath their wings, while their weapon systems fired bolts of the same plasma energy used by hegemony fighters. "Dragon 2, break left and engage those escort fighters," she commanded, rolling her aircraft through a maneuver that would have been impossible without alien gravity manipulation technology. "Dragon 4, stay with me. We're going after that." Troop transport. Her squadron danced through the enemy formation with deadly grace, their human pilots adapting alien technology in ways the original designers never intended. Where alien pilots flew in rigid formations dictated by their military doctrine, the human pilots improvised, twisted, and struck from impossible angles. The alien troop transport, laden with reinforcements for the ground invasion, found itself surrounded by 6 impossible aircraft that shouldn't have existed. The pilots inside could only watch in horror as their primitive enemies unleashed weapons that matched their own advanced technology. Aboard his flagship, War Chief Balthok stared at tactical displays showing red warning symbols across every sector. His perfect invasion was collapsing into chaos, and he couldn't understand how it was happening. "Tactical analysis," he barked at his officers. "How are these primitives matching our technology?" His intelligence officer, a spider-like creature with multiple eyes, manipulated the holographic displays with trembling limbs. "War Chief, these humans appear to have been preparing for our arrival. They've somehow acquired and weaponized our own technology." For the first time in 3 centuries of conquest, War Chief Balthok felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. These humans weren't following the script. They weren't cowering in their cities waiting for salvation. That would never come. They were fighting back with weapons that shouldn't exist and tactics that defied every military manual in the hegemony database. The aliens were beginning to learn a hard truth about humanity. They didn't just survive. They adapted. They learned, and they never forgot to pay back their enemies with interest. War Chief Balthok's 4 eyes darted frantically across the tactical hologram floating above his command center. Red warning symbols flashed everywhere. Damaged ships, lost communication with ground forces, supply lines cut. His mandibles clicked rapidly in a pattern his species associated with extreme stress. "Impossible," he hissed, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid speech. "These humans use primitive chemical rockets. Their weapons are centuries behind our technology. How are they matching our firepower?" His tactical officer, a tall gray alien with large black eyes, manipulated the display with trembling fingers. "War Chief, intelligence suggests they have somehow acquired our technology and modified it, but that should be impossible. Their understanding of quantum physics is rudimentary at best." What Balthok didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this moment for decades. Every crashed alien scout ship, every piece of debris from deep space reconnaissance missions, every fragment of advanced technology that had fallen to Earth had been studied, reverse-engineered and improved upon by the brightest minds humanity could produce. 300 meters beneath the mountains of Gangwon Province, General Kang Yojin stood before a massive tactical display that showed the entire Korean peninsula. Her underground command center had been carved from solid rock over 20 years, connected to every major city by quantum communication networks that the aliens couldn't detect or jam. "Phase 1 exceeded all expectations," she announced to her staff officers. "Enemy casualties are at 30% and climbing. Time to show them what happens when you really make humans angry." She pressed a button marked with red Korean characters that translated to maximum escalation. Across the country, her voice echoed through hidden speakers in bunkers, caves, and shelters where millions of civilians had been waiting for this exact moment. "All units, Phase 2 is authorized. Light them up." The response was immediate and devastating. What the alien reconnaissance drones had catalogued as peaceful rice paddies suddenly erupted as hidden missile silos opened their camouflaged covers. Hundreds of surface-to-air missiles streaked skyward, their guidance systems locked onto alien aircraft that had felt safe flying at low altitude. In the ancient Bulguksa temple near Gyeongju, Buddhist monks in orange robes moved aside massive stone statues to reveal sophisticated command and control equipment. The temple, which had stood for over 1,000 years, had been secretly converted into a fortress during the preparation for alien invasion. Its thick stone walls now hid quantum computers, energy weapon charging stations, and communication arrays that coordinated resistance across the southern provinces. Master Kim Doohan, a 70-year-old monk who had spent the last 20 years training in both meditation and military tactics, spoke calmly into his headset. "Southern Command is operational. All temple fortresses report ready. May Buddha forgive us for what we must do." Even in the smallest villages, the fight had become personal. Grandmother Hwang Sunja, who had lived through the Korean War as a child and spent 70 years tending her family's farm, now stood beside a rice harvester that had been secretly modified with alien energy weapons. Her weathered hands, which had planted millions of rice seeds over the decades, now gripped controls that could melt alien armor at 2 kilometers. "These invaders want to take our children as slaves," she said to her village defense unit, a group of farmers and shopkeepers who had transformed overnight into guerrilla fighters. My grandson will not bow to alien masters. Fire at will. Her modified harvester opened up with plasma cannons that had been salvaged from crashed alien fighters. The purple energy beams carved through an alien patrol like a scythe through wheat, leaving nothing but glowing metal scattered across the village square. 50 kilometers to the north, Captain Yu Hyunho crouched in the ruins of what had been Incheon International Airport. His Special Forces team had been tracking a damaged alien cruiser that had crash-landed after taking hits from the harbor defense systems. The ship was huge, nearly a kilometer long, and still partially operational. Team Alpha, we go in fast. Hand hard, he whispered into his communication device. Remember, we're not just fighting for Korea. We're fighting for every human child who deserves to grow up free. His soldiers moved like shadows through the wreckage, each one equipped with weapons that combined human ingenuity with alien technology. They carried plasma rifles that looked like conventional assault weapons, but fired bolts of energy, hot enough to melt steel. Their body armor incorporated alien shield generators that could deflect energy weapons while remaining flexible enough for rapid movement. The alien crew inside the crashed cruiser never saw them coming. Human soldiers appeared from impossible angles, moving through ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels that the aliens hadn't considered defending. Within minutes, another piece of advanced alien technology was in human hands, ready to be studied, copied, and turned against its former owners. But what truly terrified the hegemony forces was humanity's response to escalation. Every alien attack was met with immediate and overwhelming retaliation. When alien artillery bombarded a Korean city, human forces would strike back at 3 alien positions. When alien fighters strafed civilian areas, human pilots would hunt down enemy squadrons with single-minded determination. Lieutenant Colonel Baek Soo-jin commanded an artillery division that had been completely transformed by captured alien technology. Her howitzers now fired plasma shells that could punch through starship armor, while her targeting systems used alien quantum sensors to track enemies through electronic countermeasures. Battery 1, target grid 77 Alpha, she commanded, from her armored command vehicle. Those alien drop pods think they're safe behind that ridge. Time to show them what Korean artillery can do. The plasma shells streaked across the sky like miniature suns, each one containing enough energy to level a city block. When they impacted the alien positions, the explosions could be seen from orbit, brilliant flashes of purple and white light that announced to the galaxy that Earth would not go quietly into slavery. Aboard his flagship, War Chief Balthok watched. Another wave of his ships fall from the sky. His perfect invasion had become a nightmare of burning metal and scattered debris. These humans weren't just defending themselves, they were actively hunting his forces with a ferocity that violated every military doctrine in the hegemony database. War Chief, his communications officer reported, we're receiving distress calls from 17 different ground units. They're requesting immediate evacuation. Balthok's mandibles clicked in patterns his species used to express concepts that had no translation in any other language. For the first time in his long military career, he was facing an enemy that refused to be conquered. The humans had turned his own technology against him, and they were using it better than his own forces. The ice, while room on Earth buzzed with tension, Admiral Kwon Tae-young stood before the massive holographic display, showing every imperial world across the galaxy. Her weathered face showed no emotion as she studied the tactical data streaming in from reconnaissance ships. Ma'am, we've confirmed the positions of all 73 major imperial strongholds, reported Captain Park Min-ho, his fingers dancing across the control console. Our stealth probes made it through their sensor networks undetected. The Admiral nodded slowly. For months, human scientists had been working around the clock, taking apart captured Vixarian technology piece by piece. Dr. Shin Hye-won's breakthrough with Imperial shield frequencies had changed everything. Commander Nam Woo-jin's weapons research team had created something the Empire never expected. Their own technology turned against them, but improved beyond their wildest imagination. Operation Broken Chain is approved, Admiral Kwon announced to the assembled War Council. Every major Imperial world, simultaneously. We end this war in one strike. General Li Chan-wook leaned forward in his chair. Admiral, are you certain about this? We're talking about hitting 73 worlds at once. The coordination required. The Empire made their choice when they refused our warnings, the Admiral replied firmly. They wanted to see what humanity was capable of. Now, they'll get their answer. Across human space, the largest military operation in galactic history began to unfold. Massive fleets emerged from hidden bases on the edges of solar systems. The new human battleships were sleek predators, their hulls black as space itself, equipped with reverse-engineered Imperial cloaking technology that the Vixarians thought was impossible to replicate. Captain Yoon Ji-sung commanded the assault fleet heading for the Imperial homeworld. His flagship, the Soul's Revenge, cut through hyperspace alongside 200 other human vessels. The ship's AI calculated jump coordinates with precision that would have impressed even Imperial navigators. Sir, we're approaching the final jump point, announced Lieutenant Han Soo-jin from the navigation station. All ships report ready. Open a channel to the fleet, Captain Yoon ordered. This is it, people. Remember what they did to our colonies. Remember the families they destroyed. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you back humanity into a corner. Meanwhile, on the Imperial homeworld of Vixar Prime, Emperor Zalthun was reviewing reports from the front lines. The news was increasingly disturbing. Human forces had been pushing deeper into Imperial territory with weapons and tactics that defied explanation. "Oh, Your Majesty," his aide nervously approached the throne. "Our outer defense stations have gone silent, all of them, simultaneously." The Emperor's 4 eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, silent?" Before the aide could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. The massive crystalline windows showed something impossible. The sky was filling with ships, human ships, hundreds of them, materializing out of nowhere as their cloaking systems disengaged. "Alert all defense fleets!" the Emperor roared. "How did they get past our early warning systems?" Admiral Kexthul, the Empire's highest military commander, burst into the throne room. "Your Majesty, they're everywhere. Every major world in the Empire is under attack. Our defensive networks are useless against their stealth technology." Outside, the human fleet moved with deadly precision. The Soul's Revenge led the charge, its new plasma cannons tearing through Imperial shield generators like paper. Captain R. Yoon watched as the planet's orbital defenses crumbled under the coordinated assault. "Target their communication arrays first," he ordered. "Cut off their ability to coordinate a response." The human weapons were devastating. Dr. Shin's team had not only copied Imperial technology, but had found ways to make it exponentially more powerful. Energy beams that could punch through Imperial armor plating struck target after target. The Vixarian defenders, caught completely off guard, scrambled to mount any kind of defense. In the palace, Emperor Zalthun watched his capital city's massive energy shields flicker and fail. Explosions lit up the horizon as human bombs found their targets with surgical precision. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Empire, was being systematically destroyed in orbit above his homeworld. His personal communicator crackled to life. The voice that came through was calm, professional, and terrifyingly familiar. "Your Majesty, this is Admiral Kim So-young of the Human Defense Coalition." The Emperor's blood ran cold. This was the same human who had issued that first warning months ago, when this all began. The one his commanders had laughed at. "I remember you," he whispered into the device. "Good," Admiral Kim replied. "Your Majesty, we told your forces to run. We begged your empire to leave our people alone. We tried to save lives, including your own soldiers, but your empire chose war with humanity." Through his palace windows, Zalthun could see Imperial warships falling from the sky like burning meteors. The mighty Vixarian fleet, which had conquered 1,000 worlds, was being obliterated by species they had considered primitive just months ago. "What do you want?" the Emperor asked, his voice barely audible over the sound of distant explosions. "Unconditional surrender," Admiral Kim's voice remained steady. "Full withdrawal from human space, reparations for every colony your empire attacked, and a promise that your people will never again mistake human mercy for human weakness." On 73 worlds across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out. Imperial strongholds that had stood for millennia were falling in hours. The human strategy was flawless. simultaneous strikes that prevented any coordinated Imperial response. Captain Yoon received confirmation from Fleet Command. Sir, all target worlds report mission success. Imperial resistance has collapsed across the board. The Emperor looked out at his burning capital and made the only choice left to him. We agree to your terms, he said quietly into the communicator. Admiral Kim's final transmission was broadcast across every communication network in the galaxy. Her words would be remembered for generations. To all species watching this conflict, remember what you've seen here. Humanity doesn't start wars, but when war comes to us, we finish it. We told them to run. Now the galaxy knows why. 3 days later, the Vixarian Empire officially surrendered. The human fleets withdrew to their own territory, asking for nothing more than to be left in peace. But the galaxy had learned its lesson. From that day forward, when any species encountered humanity, they shared the same advice. Whatever you do, don't make them angry, and if you see human ships coming your way, run. The massive human fleet hung in space like steel thunderclouds around Vorth Prime. Every ship bore the scars of 50 years in the void, but their weapons gleamed with deadly purpose. Fleet Admiral Taehyun Shin watched the planet below through the viewport of his flagship, the kilometer-long battleship Retribution. The alien cities sprawled across the surface like glowing webs, housing billions who had grown fat and comfortable, while humanity suffered in exile. Sir, all battle groups are in position, reported his tactical officer. The Vorthans are scrambling their defense fleets, but their ships look ancient compared to ours. Shin nodded grimly. 50 years of survival had taught humanity to build better, fight smarter, and never waste resources. While the Vorthans had grown soft in peacetime, humans had forged themselves into something harder than diamond. President Jiwon Seo stood in the communication chamber, her weathered hands steady despite her 93 years. She had been a young woman when Earth burned, had watched her homeworld die from the safety of an evacuation ship. Every line on her face told the story of decades spent building humanity's strength in the darkness between stars. Open the channel to all Vorthan worlds, she commanded. The holographic display flickered to life, showing terrified alien faces across dozens of planets. These creatures had 8 arms each, their blue-scaled skin now pale with fear. Once they had been humanity's allies. Once they had sworn eternal friendship. People of the Vorthan Empire, President Seo began, her voice carrying across light years in an instant. 50 years ago, you condemned humanity to extinction. You watched our world die and celebrated our passing. You thought us weak because we chose diplomacy over war. Today we return to collect what you owe us. On Vorth Prime's surface, citizens fled into underground shelters as human warships cast shadows over their cities. The planet's defense stations powered up their energy shields, but everyone could see the math. 300 human vessels surrounded their world, each one bristling with weapons that could crack continents. Chancellor Thexmore was dragged from his palace bunker by his own guards, who hoped surrendering their leader might save their lives. The elderly Vorthan's 8 arms trembled as he was brought aboard the human flagship. He remembered when humans were polite visitors asking for trade agreements. Now they commanded the most terrifying war fleet the galaxy had ever seen. The negotiation chamber aboard Retribution was stark and cold. Admiral Jiho Park, now 81, but still radiating the confidence of a man who had never lost a battle, sat across from the alien chancellor. Behind him stood rows of human officers, their faces carved from stone. Our terms are simple, Admiral Park stated, sliding a datapad across the metal table. Complete withdrawal from all former human territories, full reparations for the reconstruction of our worlds, and trials for every leader who participated in our abandonment. Thexmore's tentacle-like fingers shook as he read the demands. The reparations alone would bankrupt his empire for centuries. The territorial concessions would reduce Vortan space by half, and the war crimes trials would see his entire government executed. This is impossible, he wheezed through his breathing. Apparatus, our people will never accept such terms. President Seo entered the chamber at that moment, her ancient frame supported by a walking stick, carved from the wood of Earth's last surviving oak tree. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of every human soul lost in the great betrayal. Your People celebrated when Earth burned, she said quietly. They sent messages of congratulation when the plague swept through our colonies. They carved up our territory like vultures fighting over carrion. Now you speak of what your people will accept. Through the chamber's windows, they could see human fighters racing between the Vorthan defense platforms, their energy weapons carving through alien shields like hot knives through ice. The humans had learned to fight from species far more dangerous than the Vorthans. They had survived battles against mechanical swarms, energy beings, and worse things that lurked in the galaxies. Dark corners, and if we refuse? Thexmore asked, though he already knew the answer from the terror in his own voice. President Seo leaned forward, and for a moment, the aging human leader let her mask slip. Behind her diplomatic composure lurked something that made the alien Chancellor's blood freeze. This was the face of a species that had clawed its way back from extinction through pure determination and rage. Then you'll discover what happens when humanity stops showing mercy. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Outside, human ships began powering up their main weapons, each one capable of glassing a city in seconds. The Vorthans had energy shields, but human technology had advanced beyond anything their former allies could imagine. Thexmore's hands shook as he reached for the surrender documents. His signature would end his empire's independence forever, but refusing meant watching his species join humanity in extinction. At least this way, some of his people might survive as subjects rather than memories. The formal surrender took 3 hours to complete. As human ships took control of former human space and began the long process of rebuilding their civilization, the galaxy learned a harsh lesson that would echo through the ages. Never assume your enemy is dead until you've buried them yourself. Humanity had returned, stronger and more determined than ever. The species that had been written off as extinct had spent 50 years becoming something their enemies couldn't imagine. They were patient, calculating, and utterly unwilling to forgive those who had betrayed them. The age of human mercy was over. The age of human justice had begun,